I went to visit my son-in-law, Harry, on what I thought was just another normal evening, a simple unannounced check-in while my daughter Emma was away on a business trip. Because I had always believed it was a father's duty to look after his child's home in her absence. But what I discovered that night shattered my world and planted the seed of revenge so carefully calculated that it would one day tear down every wall to seat around me. Because as I approached his driveway, the motion sensor light flicked on and illuminated a car that stopped me in my tracks, the metallic silver gleam of a Porsche parked proudly in his garage. But not just any Porsche. It was the very same luxury machine I had gifted my wife Jessica for our 25th wedding anniversary. The car she swore was her dream and her loyalty symbol to me. The car that was supposed to stay in my garage but now sat in Harry's as if mocking me. And in that moment my mind raced with excuses. Maybe she left it there for repair. Maybe Emma had borrowed it and dropped it off, but my gut told me otherwise, and when I heard laughter spill from the slightly open window, laughter far too intimate for his son-in-law and his mother-in-law, every illusion I had tried to cling to cracked apart. So I stepped closer, slow, careful, my heart pounding so loud, I feared they would hear it. And when I peeked through the thin curtain, what I saw nearly ripped the breath from my lungs. Jessica sitting far too comfortably across from Harry, wine glasses between them, her hair loose, her smile careless, and when she leaned forward to take her glass, her lower back was exposed a way that should only ever belong to a husband's eyes, not a son-in-law's. And then came the words that twisted the knife even deeper, her soft voice laced with mockery as she said, "I should head home now. I have to cook for your beloved father-in-law before he suspects anything." And their laughter in response was not the laughter of guilt, but of arrogance, as if I were the fool they were entertaining behind my back. And right then and there my world tilted. Because betrayal from strangers is survivable. Betrayal from enemies can even be expected. But betrayal from the woman I built my life with and the man I trusted my daughter's happiness with, that betrayal is poison. It burns through every vein. And though my body screamed to burst and to shout, to tear the truth from their mouths, my mind chose silence. Because silence is not weakness. It is strategy, and I knew in that moment that storming would make me the victim twice. But waiting, watching, collecting every piece of their treachery would one day make me their judge and executioner. And so I left quietly, fire raging in my chest, already carving the shape of my revenge in my mind, because the game had changed, and they had no idea that the prey they mocked was about to become the hunter. For the next 2 days I carried that secret like a stone in my chest, unable to sleep, unable to eat, pretending as if nothing had happened. But every glance at Jessica burned me. Every good morning from her lips dripped with venom I could no longer swallow. And when Emma returned from her business trip, my heart broke all over again because I saw the hope and trust in her eyes, the faith in a husband who was already selling her dignity behind her back. And I realized I had to tell her, no, matter how much it hurt. So one night after dinner, I asked her to sit in the dim glow of the living room lamp, and as the shadows stretched long across the floor, I told her everything. Every detail, what I saw, what I heard, what her mother said. And as the words left me, I watched her face collapse, first into disbelief, then tears, then finally harden into something I had never seen before, a kind of cold rage that only comes when love has been murdered. And she didn't scream. She didn't collapse. She simply looked at me with steel in her eyes and said, "We'll make them pay, Dad. They'll regret the day they thought we were weak." And in that moment I knew I was not alone in this. Because Emma was not just my daughter. She was my ally, my blood. And together we would dismantle the liars who thought they could play us for fools. But revenge in America is not about throwing fists or wild threats. Because reckless men end up in prison while guilty men walk free. No. Real revenge here is about intelligence, patience, and using the system that betrayers think will protect them. So Emma and I began to move in silence, gathering evidence like detectives, playing the roles of loyal wife and clueless husband while secretly recording phone calls, saving bank statements, installing discreet cameras in places Jessica would never. Suspect. And Emma played her part perfectly, pretending to be affectionate with Harry, drawing him into casual conversations that revealed his lies, recording every slip of the tongue, and I too played mine, showering Jessica with gifts, complimenting her, lulling her into a false sense of security, so she would lower her guard. And within weeks we had built a fortress of proof so solid that it could crush them both in court, in the eyes of family, and in the court of public opinion. But collecting evidence was only the first step, Because true revenge is not just about catching the guilty. It's about making them feel the slow creep of fear, the dread of being exposed, the paranoia that every whisper might be the sound of their downfall. And so, we began to plant seeds of doubt in their minds. Emma would casually mention places Harry swore he never visited, just to watch his eyes flicker with panic, and I would give Jessica flowers on days she had been with Harry, smiling as if I were blind, and slowly their laughter lost its ease, their glances became nervous, their nights restless, because fear is the beginning of punishment, and nothing tastes sweeter than watching the arrogant choke on the fear of their own lies. And dear listener, let me ask you this. What would you have done in my place? Would you have confronted them that first night, screamed, broken everything, or would you, like me, have waited, letting them dig their own graves with every passing day, waiting for the perfect moment to pull the rug out from under their feet? Tell me, because maybe your answer will guide someone else walking to the fire of betrayal tonight. The deeper our plan grew, the closer Jessica and Harry unknowingly pushed themselves toward the cliff. And yet part of me wondered if fate itself was helping me, because sometimes they slipped so easily into mistakes that I almost pitied them. Almost. But then I remembered the sound of their laughter mocking me that night, and all pity turned to steel. And soon enough their recklessness handed us golden opportunities. Like the night Jessica claimed she was meeting a friend for dinner, but Emma tracked her phone straight to Harry's house, where she stayed for hours, and instead of confronting her, Emma and I waited in the dark street, camera in hand, recording Jessica leaving Harry's house in the very dress she had sworn was bought just for me. And when she stepped out, her hair messy, her lips stained with wine, we captured it all. And it was then I realized that betrayal has a way of making the guilty careless, because when people believe they're winning, they stop guarding their secrets. And that was when Emma suggested something bold, something that made even me hesitate at first. She wanted to feed them a false sense of invincibility, to let them believe they were smarter than us, so they would act even more openly. And though I feared the risk, I agreed, because the sweetest revenge is when your enemy digs his own grave with his own hands. And so we crafted the illusion of ignorance, laughing at dinner, smiling in family photos, pretending to be oblivious while they, blinded by arrogance, fell deeper into their own trap. But as with any game of deceit, there were close calls, moments when the mask nearly slipped, like the night Harry arrived late at Emma's friend's party, and she, with nerves of steel, wrapped her arms around him as if nothing were wrong, smiling brightly while secretly slipping a tiny recording device into his jacket pocket. And though my heart pounded as I watched from across the room, terrified he would notice, Harry was too busy scanning the crowd for Jessica, and that night's recording gave us the very confession we had prayed for. Harry whispering on the phone to Jessica, "No one suspects a thing. They're both too blind. We can keep this up until we decide what to do about them." And those words were a gift, because arrogance always speaks too loudly, always leaves footprints for the hunter to follow. And with every passing week our collection of recordings, photos, and documents grew heavier, until the weight of truth was so immense that it was no longer a matter of if they would fall, but when. And yet, dear listener, imagine the strain of living under the same roof with a traitor, of eating meals cooked by a woman who smiles at you while secretly mocking you with her lover, of saying goodnight to a wife whose heart is no longer yours, but belongs to the very man who vowed to love your daughter. And tell me, would you have been able to stay calm, to wait, to bide your time while the fire burned inside you, or would you have unleashed your fury and damned the consequences? Because every day I battled that storm inside me, but Emma kept me steady, reminding me that the most powerful revenge is not loud rage, but silent preparation. And together we built the stage for their downfall. The climax began on a night they never saw coming, a night wrapped in celebration, because Emma suggested we host a grand dinner in honor of Jessica's birthday. Invite close family, friends, neighbors, anyone whose opinion mattered to her, because betrayal done in secret must be punished in the open. And Jessica, blinded by vanity, agreed without suspicion, even helping with the guest list, never realizing she was curating her own jury. And when the evening came, the house glowed with warm lights, laughter filled the air, glasses clinked, and for a brief moment it looked like any ordinary family gathering. But beneath the smiles lay the sharp edge of truth, ready to cut through the lies. And as the cake was placed on the table and everyone raised their glasses for a toast, I stood, remote in hand, my heart steady, and with one click the television behind me lit up, the room falling into sudden silence as instead of birthday greetings, the screen filled with images and recordings. Jessica's Porsche parked in Harry's garage, the video of her sneaking out his house late at night, the audio of Harry bragging that we suspected nothing, and as the minutes ticked by, every guest in the room shifted from confusion to horror to disgust, and Jessica's face drained of color, her hands trembling so violently she knocked over her glass, while Harry froze like a man watching his own funeral. And then came the whispers, the stares, the weight of judgment pressing down from every side, and in that moment, humiliation itself became our ally, because nothing destroys the arrogant faster than the public eye catching them naked in their lies. But exposure was only the beginning, because Emma and I had promised ourselves that justice would not stop at humiliation. It would be written in law, etched in consequence. So the very next morning, armed with our mountain of evidence, I filed for divorce, and Emma, with her head held high though her heart was breaking, filed for separation and legal action against Harry, and the courts, bound by the evidence we presented, had no choice but to side with us, stripping Jessica of the financial comfort she had once mocked me with, leaving her with nothing but regret, while Harry was crushed under the weight of legal penalties, financial losses, and a reputation in ruins, his career shattered, his friends abandoning him. And for a man who once laughed so easily at my expense, silence became his only companion. Yet revenge is not complete without reflection, and as Emma and I stood outside the courthouse one cold morning, papers in hand, our enemies defeated, she turned to me with tears glistening in her eyes and asked, "Dad, did we do the right thing?" And I held her close, telling her that justice is never about destroying people. It's about teaching them that choices have consequences, that betrayal is not a game without cost, and that sometimes the only way to protect the innocent is to let the guilty feel the weight of the truth they try to bury. And dear listener, I turn that question to you now. What would you have done? Would you have chosen forgiveness and walked away quietly? Or would you have fought back as we did, gathering every shard of truth until it formed the blade of justice? Share your thoughts, because your words might be the strength another broken heart needs tonight. Someone listening who wonders if they can ever rise from betrayal. And let me tell you this, yes, you can, because victims can become victors, and silence can become thunder if you choose to stand. And so our story ended not in despair, but in a new beginning. For while Jessica and Harry spiraled into shadows of their own making, Emma and I rebuilt from the ruins, stronger, wiser, and bound together by a bond no betrayal could sever. And those scars remain, they serve as reminders that we walked through fire and came out forged, and that, dear listener, is the greatest revenge of all, not just watching the guilty fall, but standing tall when the smoke clears, proving that betrayal may wound, but it can never define you unless you let it.